Folks, we got a launch today with a video about James Comey having been indicted late last night in the Eastern District of Virginia by convicted felon Donald Trump's hand-picked law lackey, Lindsay Halligan. Listen, I know I spent a lot of time here talking about the parking lot lawyer extraordinaire, Alina Habba, but Lindsay Halligan has now escalated to the top of the shit list, in my opinion, when it comes to unethical prosecutors. Unethical lawyers, frankly, because I can't even call her a prosecutor. She may have the moniker or the title of U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia, but she has no criminal experience. She has never prosecuted a case. She's never criminally defended a case. And I don't count the nominal time she spent carrying people's briefcases in felon Trump's classified documents Espionage Act case. But let's not spend too much time on Halligan. That deserves a video in and of itself. Let's talk about what's happening right now with James Comey. I'm going to first start by playing the response that was put out on social media by James Comey himself last night. I want you to listen to it carefully, and I want you to feel carefully what this man was saying to you, to America, and to what's left of democracy. Take a listen.
My family and I have known for years that there are costs to standing up to Donald Trump, but we couldn't imagine ourselves living any other way. We will not live on our knees, and you shouldn't either. Somebody that I love dearly recently said that fear is the tool of a tyrant, and she's right. But I'm not afraid, and I hope you're not either. I hope instead you are engaged, you are paying attention, and you will vote like your beloved country depends upon it, which it does. My heart is broken for the Department of Justice, but I have great confidence in the federal judicial system, and I'm innocent. So let's have a trial and keep the faith.
I suspect that the person about whom he is talking, the person that he loves very much, is his daughter, Maureen Comey. I want to talk about Maureen quickly right now. Maureen Comey, a successful, brilliant, skilled federal prosecutor in the Southern District of New York, was summarily fired, wrongfully terminated from her job as a federal prosecutor and the SDNY less than a week before the Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, another law lackey for Donald Trump, went and very cozily met with Ghislaine Maxwell, convicted child sex predator, convicted child sex trafficker, convicted child sex abuser, best friend to Jeffrey Epstein, close friend to Donald Trump, that Ghislaine Maxwell. Remember, Blanche sat with Maxwell in the comfort of the U.S. Attorney's Office in downtown Tallahassee, Florida, plucked her out of federal prison where she's been serving 20-something years after having been duly convicted and sentenced after a jury of her peers found her to be guilty of multiple federal statutes. Oh, but yes, we know this. Maxwell doesn't spend time in that federal prison anymore. In fact, she was moved as a result of her little cozy meeting with Todd Blanche to Texas, where she is in a minimum security camp, where she is allowed access to things that she didn't have before, as a result in having been rewarded for her bullshit lies that she spread about not only everybody, but also her exculpation of Donald Trump and others. Maureen Comey fired a week before that happened between Blanche and Maxwell. Maureen Comey was one of the lead trial prosecutors that prosecuted not only Ghislaine Maxwell, but Jeffrey Epstein, but P. Diddy and others. She was fired. She's the daughter of James Comey. The daughter. What else happened to the Comey family? Well, last night, James Comey's son-in-law, Troy Edwards, resigned from his position as a senior national security prosecutor after his father-in-law, James Comey, was indicted. In a one-sentence letter to the U.S. Attorney in the EDVA, Lindsay Halligan, this is what Mr. Edwards wrote, quote, "To uphold my oath to the Constitution and country, I hereby resign as an Assistant United States Attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia in the Department of Justice effective immediately." He was working in that same office that's now prosecuting his father-in-law. If you don't think that this is an act of retaliation by Donald Trump, then you must be an idiot. Because Donald Trump has been gunning for James Comey for years. The ironies abound, I know. I have read your comments, folks. I understand some of you are not sympathetic to what is happening to James Comey. I am here to tell you right now that's not the position to be taking. I understand a lot of you are angry about what happened in 2016. A lot of you blame James Comey for Donald Trump winning the presidency in November of 2016. I am not here to litigate the merits of that position. What I am here to say to you is this. When an American president can weaponize the DOJ to go after his political enemies, we as a country are fucked. I am calling time of death for our judicial system yesterday, September 25th, 2025. At least our judicial system with a DOJ with Pamela Jo Bondi at the helm, with law lackeys like Lindsay Halligan at the helm of the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Eastern District of Virginia. Now, I'm going to refresh your recollection for a hot second. I've talked about it for the last few days. We're going to do it again. Eric Siebert, who was the Trump-picked interim U.S. attorney for 120 days, a longtime career prosecutor, well-respected, he was pressured by Trump to bring charges against not only Tish James, but James Comey. And federal prosecutors in that office have prepared memos, according to the media, that have clearly reflected that they do not believe that the evidence exists to be able to bring charges against James Comey, and that there is no probable cause to be able to pursue charges against James Comey. But instead of listening to the wisdom of his hand-picked prosecutor Eric Siebert, what did Trump do? Trump pressured him so badly that he did a forced resignation. Now, Trump wants to lie to the American people and say that he fired Eric Siebert, but that's not true. Siebert resigned. But he resigned in protest because he wasn't going to be forced to do something that was unethical and illegal. And I want to remind people that Siebert, after his 120 days expired, all of the federal judges in the Eastern District of Virginia, in this incredible rocket docket jurisdiction, that is a hardcore jurisdiction when it comes to trials and to lawyers and to judges, all of those judges unanimously picked Siebert to continue as a U.S. attorney. So it's not just in the U.S. Attorney's Office that he was so respected. Even the judges respected him for doing the right thing. And they wanted him to continue in that job. Now, contrast Siebert to Alina Habba, who was the interim U.S. attorney. And at the expiration of her 120 days, the judges there were like, hell to the no, she's not staying here in that job. And as we know, there were all sorts of bullshit machinations that were also illegal that got her into the first assistant U.S. attorney job that now makes her the basically acting U.S. attorney because there isn't one in that job. But when you think about a hand-picked contract killer, because that's the phrase to use for Lindsay Halligan, she's a hand-picked contract killer, right? But she is no killer because she doesn't have the skill set to be able to pull this off. But in an incredibly unusual move, she herself went into the grand jury yesterday and presented what we don't know. We do not know what representations and evidence she presented to the grand jury to secure this indictment against James Comey. That is a huge, looming, open question that must be answered. Grand jury proceedings are confidential, though. But Lindsay Halligan, in a very rare move, went with her level of inexperience to the grand jury and secured an indictment for 2 counts against James Comey. And the indictment is here. And let me tell you what was filed in Comey's case yesterday makes it clear. The grand jurors did not concur in finding an indictment as to count 1, and count 1 was false statements on September 30th of 2020 made to a U.S. senator by Comey when he said that he did not remember being taught of person 1's approval of a plan concerning person 2 and the 2016 presidential election. The grand jury said, no, we don't buy that. But then the grand jury said, yeah, the other 2 counts we are going to return a true bill on, and Lindsay Halligan's signature is on it. Listen, if I'm Lindsay Halligan, I'm taking a moment right now to be worried. I don't care how much she's a cultist and loyalist for Donald Trump. I'd be fucking worried if I'm her because my law license is now on the line. Her law license is about to go the way of Rudy Giuliani, Sidney Powell, Kenneth Chesbrough, Jeffrey Clark. Should I keep on going? But I guess she just doesn't care, right? And she raced to beat the expiration of the statute of limitations by days. So what does it tell you? That Trump could have done this before, but he didn't. The Biden administration could have done this, but didn't. But now that Trump's back in office, it's happening. But more clearly, it's not that Trump's back in office. Trump is taking Lindsay Halligan and using her to bring this indictment against James Comey. I truly think that if you look at it, this is almost a reversal of the Eric Adams situation that happened just a few months ago, wherein career, respected prosecutors, including those that are senior and running the office, are saying that there is enough to prosecute and to continue to prosecute Eric Adams, the mayor of New York, for his violation of crimes, including what? Fraud and others, right? But Eric Adams, being an ass kisser of Donald Trump, Eric Adams gets Trump to do what? To pressure through Emil Bovee and others in the DOJ to dismiss the charges. And what do those ethical federal prosecutors do? They said, no, we would rather resign than be forced to dismiss charges against Eric Adams because we know what is the right thing to do. We know what the rule of law is. We know what the law is. You're going to hear a lot of people say a lot of dumb stuff that is not only unfounded and baseless, but they don't have the requisite ability to understand critically with the thought process of what the hell is going on here. I don't want to hear that the grand jury has now returned the indictment, so Katie, just let the process happen. No, it should have never have gotten to this point. This is a total perversion of justice, that we are now at this point where the presentation to the grand jury happened at all. But again, with the Eric Adams thing, you had ethical prosecutors that said no. Eric Siebert was an ethical prosecutor who said hell no. And that is why I'm telling you right now, I submit that's the reason why Lindsay Halligan herself had to go to the grand jury and make this presentation, because I'm not quite sure what line prosecutor was willing to put their ass on the line to make this presentation to the grand jury last night. This is a wholesale attack on the rule of law and our criminal justice system. No president should be allowed to prosecute their political enemies. None. I don't care if it's a Democratic president. It should never be allowed. We should never be in a place in an American democracy where you have to live in fear that if you exercise your First Amendment right to free speech, to express your opinion, your disagreement with how our government is being run, with actions that are being taken, with statements that are being said on the other side of the aisle, you should not fear that you are going to be politically prosecuted or criminally prosecuted. And yet the persecutions abound. And I'm telling you right now, it is not going to stop with James Comey. They will go after Tish James. They will go after Adam Schiff. They will continue to go after people that are brave, that are speaking up and out against this tyranny, against the fascism, against the authoritarianism that has become a hallmark of Trump 2.0. Trump's Truth Social posts over the weekend, where he admonished publicly Pamela Joe for her lack of prosecution of Comey, Schiff, and James. That will come back to bite him in the ass. That will become Exhibit A to a vindictive prosecution motion to dismiss and a selective prosecution motion to dismiss. We should be grateful, I guess, right, that Trump is so stupid as to be so transparent and public about his malevolent intent. I guess we should be grateful, at least if you're the criminal defense attorneys that are handling these cases, you're grateful that Trump is dumb enough to put it all out there, to let it all hang out there. And yet, it should never have gotten to this point, ever. There are going to be bar complaints against Lindsay Halligan's license. There's going to be professional ethics complaints that are about to come against Lindsay Halligan for the conduct that she's just done. Because it is an unsustainable attack on our judicial system by doing that. So who's in James Comey's corner? I am. Lots of lawyers, governors, former U.S. attorneys, former federal prosecutors, former public defenders, former judges. We're in James Comey's corner. Not because we agree perhaps with what James Comey did, but I will tell you this. James Comey's moral compass, it may be listening to stranger, more compelling voices than what reason dictates, but let me tell you something. If there is something about James Comey that you cannot assail, it is his morality. In his mind, he thought he was doing the right thing when it came to Hillary Clinton. And again, you may disagree. I am not here to litigate that with you. But that should not be an indictment of Comey in what has happened to him right now. It should not be the case. James Comey also has an exceptional criminal defense lawyer in his corner, a guy named Patrick Fitzgerald. He was the longest serving U.S. attorney in Chicago after having been tapped for that role by President George W. Bush. He left the U.S. Attorney's Office in 2012, but he has been representing James Comey since around the time Comey was fired by Donald Trump. Why? Because Comey wouldn't do what Donald Trump wanted him to do. I want you to think about how long Donald Trump has been holding and bearing a grudge against James Comey. This is such an act of retaliation against James Comey. It is quite disgusting. Patrick Fitzgerald actually was appointed to serve as special counsel in the investigation into the public outing of CIA officer Valerie Plame in 2003. Who did that appointment? James Comey. Stephen Gillers, a New York University law professor, says the following about Pat Fitzgerald, quote, "He's the kind of trial lawyer on whichever side he may be on who misses nothing, is prepared for everything, doesn't get flustered." Fitzgerald led prosecutions against Illinois governors Rod Blagojevich and George Ryan. He also steered the investigation that resulted in criminal charges against Scooter Libby, former chief of staff to ex-vice presidents. I would also say that Fitzgerald was at Skadden in private practice just until 2023, but Skadden is one of those big law firms that has bent the knee to Donald Trump, so I'm grateful to see that Fitzgerald is no longer at Skadden. And look, when I opened my internet this morning, when I looked at the internet and I saw this from the New York Times, I just wanted to read this paragraph to you before we part ways. This is the opening paragraph in the New York Times about James Comey. This is the title. "Trump gets the retribution he sought and shatters norms in the process." I would do a friendly amendment to that title. I'd say Trump gets the revenge he sought and shatters norms in the process. But listen to this paragraph carefully. An inexperienced prosecutor loyal to President Trump, in the job for less than a week, filed criminal charges against one of her boss's most reviled opponents. She did so not only at Mr. Trump's direct command, but also against the urging of both her own subordinates and her predecessor, who had just been fired for raising concerns that there was insufficient evidence to indict. End quote. That's the most accurate summation I've read in a long time about what is happening right now in the Eastern District of Virginia with James Comey. People, I said it last night on Instagram, I'll say it to you right now, you must be mad about this. You must set aside whatever feelings you have about James Comey in 2016 to understand that this is truly a five-alarm fire. That this is one of those situations where if a president can do this to somebody like James Comey, who, by the way, yes, has the privilege of the ability to fight back against this, the president can do it against anybody. And you watch. He is now going to test the limits and the boundaries of decency and the rule of law even more because he's gotten away with it now, because enablers like Lindsey Halligan and others are allowing this to happen on our watch. Not his watch, but on our watch. This is our democracy. It doesn't belong only to Donald Trump. And whatever he is doing to it is destroying it. We must speak out loudly about this. This is the time. If there was ever a time for you to care about where this country is heading, this is the time. Be mad, be outraged, and demand the accountability that we all deserve. Katie Phang here. We launched the Katie Phang News Channel in partnership with the Midas Touch Network so we could bring you the latest in legal and political news. Straight, no chaser. So if you're a fellow truth teller, hit that subscribe button and share the word about this channel so we can build a high information America together.